Since I've been in Canada, people have often asked me, why did you leave your country in the sun to come and live in Canada, a place where there is winter? The place that I originally came from, of course, was Guyana on the north coast of South America. And of course, there's no such thing as winter there. It's warm throughout the year. So I guess it's a valid question. People would wonder, why would you leave that? Well, of course, because it was a small, poor colony, was one reason why many of us left there to seek our fortune in places with a so-called higher standard of living. But something that I want to emphasize is my own answer that I would give about coming north, whether it was to Canada or England or the United States, which are all English-speaking countries, was that from the time we were little going to our tropical school with the thatched roof, we were taught that all things bright and beautiful came from the north. And so it's small wonder that many of us, when we grew up, chose to come to places like England and America and Canada. I grew up in what used to be called British Guyana. It's now independent and it's simply called Guyana. Over the years, when I've tried to tell people that that's where I'm from, they have been often confused, thinking it was a place in Africa or mixing it up with New Guinea. So I guess that is the lot of a small country. Anyway, when I grew up, it was a British colony, and so that colonial shaping was put upon me in the schools and wherever else. I remember how we used to go to this one-room school with a thatched roof on the banks of this tropical river. You know, Guyana is only 1 to 8 degrees north of the equator. But here we were, us brown and black children, learning songs like No John, No John, No. It's only after I grew up I realized what a filthy song that was. And songs like Annie Laurie and Danny Boy. When time came to learn poetry, I remember at one point I knew all 33 verses of Gray's Elegy in a country churchyard, which was like a guarantee for having a depressed childhood, because it was about a graveyard and moldering heaps and flies buzzing around and things like that. When time came for Empire Day to be honored, because we used to honor it, especially with the Empire Day hymn, we would sing, Father, hear us, we thy children of the empire here today, praying that thy holy city join us in one family. Nobody could ever convince me that family rhymed with today, but I suppose if Columaletti is Chumley and Worcestershire is Worcester, then anything is possible. Bear in mind, this school was as tropical a school as you could possibly get. We used to have to paddle about, I think, 2.5 miles in our little boats that were just about 2 inches above the water. And quite often we would see alligators sunning themselves on the banks of that river, which of course made the school kind of a progressive one, because if you didn't learn your lessons, there were 40 or 50 reasons sunning themselves on the banks. that would help you along if you needed inspiration to learn your lessons. And then again, there was the map of the world, or should I say the map of the empire. In those days, pink had a different connotation. Pink was the color on the map that represented the British Empire. And so we would stand and look and wonder at this wide display of pink patches all across the map, from England to Guyana to Australia to New Zealand, and many places in between. And sometimes a child would stick his finger up to the top of the map and to Britain and say, when I grow up, I want to go there. And sometimes a child would stick his finger right at the bottom of the right-hand side of the map where there was Australia, a big patch of pink, and say, I want to go there because at that time, that was where the best cricketers came from. And Canada, well, you just couldn't miss Canada, because Canada was that big pink splotch right in the middle of the map. And some of us filed it away for future reference.